Welcome back. Today we have my buddy's L400 in the shop and it's making a squeaking noise from the front end. I suspect it's going to be the upper ball joint, so we're going to pull the wheel off, have a look, confirm that's what it is, and then if it is, we'll swap it out. Now normally at this point I'd have somebody hop in the vehicle, turn the wheel back and forth and use a stethoscope on each one of the joints to find out which one is squeaking. But in this case I think it's pretty obvious. So that upper joint's full of water. Pretty good indication that that's probably going to be the one that's squeaking. Knowing that ball joint's full of water, we're going to swap it out. But that means I have to readjust how I've got this thing lifted. Right now, we're lifted on the lower control arm, right here. And that's to kind of replicate the same situation if the vehicle was sitting on its wheels. All of the suspension components are still loaded with the weight of the van. When the components are unloaded, that upper ball joint actually doesn't squeak. And that's because the Delica has its torsion rod right up here. And if you're not familiar with what a torsion rod is, it's basically a very long bar that runs from here to somewhere back around there. And that basically acts like the spring. It twists as the suspension moves up and down. And that means that our upper control arm is actually what supports all the weight of the vehicle. So in order to swap out this ball joint, we need to make sure that all the load is off of that control arm and hanging down, which means I need to lift the vehicle up higher, which means I've got a bit of a problem. So I'm going to figure out a solution to this. Okay, so we got the vehicle supported at 3 points on the body now. And as you can see, our upper control arm is at full droop. You see it's actually contacting the frame there. Now, this van has been lifted. If you take a look in here, you can see we got a spacer. That's a pretty common way to lift the L300 and the L400 Delica. And then of course the torsion rods have also been cranked up as high as they can go. So because of that, we're gonna have to do an extra step here, and that is we need to loosen off some of the tension on this torsion rod so that we can lift the arm up and clear the ball joint out a little bit easier. You can do it without loosening torsion, but it's a little bit of a pain. If the vehicle doesn't have the spacer in there and the torsions haven't been cranked, you can get in here with a pry bar and kind of move everything out of the way and get that ball joint out. But with the spacer and the torsions cranked up tight, it's a lot harder, so much easier to hop underneath and loosen the torsions off. And for underneath, what we're looking for is a torsion mount right here. Now, if you're looking to lift your van or lower your van, that's the adjuster that you're going to need. If you hear people talking about adjusting their torsion rods, this is it. So we're going to take our 17, loosen off the jam, and then we're going to back off the retaining nut here. Still, well, basically as far as we can go. Unfortunately, I don't have a ratchet wrench in the 17, so we're going to have to do it manually, the slow way. Now, I've already sprayed this down with some penetrating oil, but you can see these are still all full of dirt, so I'm just going to take a wire brush here and clean some of that out. It'll make adjusting this a lot easier. And because this van's going back to the same ride height that it came in, I'm going to take a quick measurement just from right here up to the frame. And that way I can at least get it roughly back to where it was supposed to be, and there's less adjusting after the fact. So it looks like it's about 2.7 centimeters. The control arm loose, we can go about starting to take out our ball joint. So we'll start with the cotter pin and the lower nut. Because we're not using this again anyways, I'm just gonna break the cotter pin off. Well, that's particularly annoying. Every one of the bolts broke off, but there wasn't really much I could do about it because they're gulled into the aluminum lift block, so I'm just gonna have to get some new ones on order and hopefully we can get the lift block off of here even. They're looking for M10 1.25 by 50. 3 of them. Nothing. Okay, thanks. Hey, I'm looking for a metric M10. No, okay, thanks. Hey, M10 1.25. Out of hope. Okay, thanks. Hey, trying to track down some metric bolts. Some, M10 1.25 by 45 or 50. How many you got? Okay, yeah, I'll take everything you got then. Okay, yeah, I'll be there shortly, thanks. Well, managed to track down some metric bolts. There's a local supplier that has 3, and we need 3, so I'm going to head over there right now to pick them up. In the meantime, this thing is just gulled solid on here. I suspect these are stainless bolts and an aluminum spacer, so they don't want to budge. I'm just going to throw them in the sonic cleaner and hope maybe the vibration helps break some of this corrosion free. And maybe when we get back, we'll be able to get it off. Amazes me how horribly metric Canada is. I mean, we're a metric country, and we absolutely suck at being metric. Fastnail had 3 bolts in stock. 3. We needed 3. So that's just luck. But I also needed some M6s in any thread pitch with nuts. Nothing. No one else seems to have it either. So I really envy you countries that are metric and know how to be metric by, you know, actually having metric stuff. because we haven't figured it out yet. The sonic cleaner did what I expected, and that unfortunately is nothing. If you look around these bolts, you can see there's no clearance around them, and there should be clearance. They're completely full of corrosion. And hitting it with a hammer, no, doesn't seem to be doing much of anything either. I could keep on trying to pound at it and try to break that corrosion down, but I could be here for hours. Heat's not going to work. All I have is a propane torch, and the propane torch isn't going to put enough heat into the aluminum. The aluminum's just going to dissipate it. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump straight to center punching them and drilling out the remains of the bolts. Wasn't fun, but got it out. Luckily we're not reusing this, so it could be a little bit more destructive. If you're trying to reuse it, well, that's a different story. If you look in the threads, you can see all of this white. That's corrosion from the aluminum, which basically just turned the whole into a big solid. Or really, it turned this entire assembly into one solid. So drilling it out did work, but yeah, I don't want to have to do that again anytime soon. Now, the reason that we're replacing this is the squeak. And this ball joint had been replaced, well, probably maybe 2 years ago. But, I mean, it's got quite a bit of play in it. And we're putting in something slightly different this time. The issue with this unit was it was non-serviceable. So once it started to squeak, or well, really once it started to get water in it, there was nothing that could be done. So the unit that's going back in now, this one here, is serviceable. You can see it's got a small hole here, and a grease fitting is going to go there, meaning that when this vehicle gets oil changes, this ball joint can be greased up, and hopefully it'll last a little bit longer than this one did. Now, this vehicle lives its life in a climate that gets a reasonable amount of snow and quite a bit of salt on the road. That leads to rust, corrosion, and problems as such. And unfortunately, that is a little bit of a flaw in these spacers. Once they're bolted down, if water gets in the top, it sits in between the threads and the holes and causes this corrosion. So I'm going to load it up with some anti-seize. I don't know how much it's going to help, but every little bit helps. And of course, we'll do the same on the bolts. With everything up front buttoned up, we can tighten the torsion bar up again. And I'm going to just tighten it until I have the 2.7 centimeters that we had originally, and hopefully our ride height will be at least relatively close to where it's supposed to be once we put it back on the ground. that pretty much wraps up the job. These tires are a little bit worn out because the vehicle was driven around for a while with the bad ball joint. So we're gonna throw some new tires on it and then fire it off to alignment. But before we do the alignment, the rear of the band is also sagging. So next time we're gonna replace the rear shocks with a set of air shocks to help support the weight. See you next time.